Look across the street. Look at the cubicle next door. Do those folks have it together? Do those folks have everything they need? How do you know? We're all one big disaster, even a small disaster, away from some really hard times. You don't know what's going on next door. And so you have to pitch in, you have to get together, and you have to make things better on purpose. We're going to talk about that next with Stacy Schiemann of the Ashland County United Way. Next. The heat is on. Let's get cooking. This is Purpose Under Pressure. It's a podcast about people just like you and me, regular business folks just trying to make a difference in the world. We get up out of bed, we swing our feet on the floor, and away we go. Along the way, things happen. The pressures rise. The pressures try to knock us off of our path. What are we going to do then? That's what this show is all about. It's called Purpose Under Pressure. If you're back, if you've listened or watched other programs and you're back to catch it again, do me a favor, would you please? And subscribe to this show or give it a 5-star rating if you'd like. Let others know that it's worth watching. It's how we're going to make an impact in the world, is if other people find something of value here. And so you can help me do that by giving a subscribe or a follow or a like, or even if you tell a friend. So thank you very much for that. Purpose Under Pressure is brought to you by Sandler, by the Ruby Group, serving sales professionals nationwide from their Akron and Columbus, Ohio locations, also from Jacksonville, Florida. It is sales training. It's business growth. They're doing it right. They're doing it well, and they are doing it on purpose. If you have a sales organization, a manufacturing organization, someone has to go out and represent you to others to make a deal, to make things happen. You want to do that right. You want to do that in a way that represents your brand well. And that is what Sandler by the Ruby Group is famous for. You can check them out online at therubygroup.sandler.com. So this is Purpose Under Pressure. And folks, there's not much more pressure than comes from an organization that helps others deal with theirs. That is on purpose. And then you won't find more than that from our guest, who is today. It's Stacy Schiemann. Welcome to Purpose Under Pressure.
Thanks, Brian. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be talking to you about this.
I am too. I gave a big preamble to all the pressure that's going on, and I forgot to say who you're with. You're the executive director of the Ashland County United Way. And
Yes.
there's no more purpose-driven organization than your United Way and every other United Way in this country. The things that you're able to do on a day-to-day basis that makes a difference for other people is just amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Can you tell of any, do you think about that when you wake up in the morning and swing your feet
Yeah.
out of bed and put them on the floor, that, man, this day is going to make a difference for somebody?
I think about it every single day that I come to work. I think that I put probably a lot of pressure on myself to make sure that we're doing all of the right things. Our United Way raises a lot of money for the size of our county, and all United Ways are their own 501c3. So we pay a membership fee to United Way worldwide. So that gets us some of the marketing and branding and some of that. But for us, because we're such a small community, we have to make our branding look so local anyhow that we don't even use a lot of that. And so for us to be able to educate the community about what we do, why it's important, and why their contribution to what we do is so important, because we can't do it without our community, that takes a lot of time and effort and education, so that we're reaching the right people, so that then the right people are getting the services that they need from our partner agencies.
Can we dive right into that? Because I think that is your purpose, right? That is your purpose, is making a difference here. The pressure is big. You mentioned we raise a lot of money for a county our size.
Yeah.
Does that mean that the ratio is a little off? Ashland County has a lot, but also needs a lot. Can you give me an example of what's going on here, why this pressure is so high?
Yeah, I think, okay, so our county, what we've got, it ranges between 53 and 56,000 people, I think, depending on what year you're looking at. And then, Ashland City itself sits right smack in the middle of the county, at like 23,000 people. We are raising a lot more money than kind of our other counties that look like us, that are raising, maybe 5, 6, $100,000, where our goal this year was 925. And
And
we don't do that because we were like, oh, 925 sounds like such a great number. It's because we're really trying to match the amount of need that's in our county to the services that, need to be provided by our partner agencies. And we, I think, are a really interesting county because there's a lot of wealth here, but there's
Mhm.
also a lot of need, and so those two things do not go together, and that can be difficult when you're trying to talk to people about why you're trying to raise funds, because we live in such a really wonderful community. It looks great. There's been a lot of just growth and revitalization that has happened. And so sometimes that can be a tough sell of like, well, why do we need this? Why do we need to provide for the services?
And what do you tell people? Because that's a big number for a smaller county. Either one, we need more than others,
Hmm.
or two, we have the capacity to give more than others. When someone says, well, why do you need this much?
Right.
What do you
And
say?
it's probably both of those things, right? I think we can provide more than other communities because we have a bit more. But I also say, like, we're trying to make sure that we don't need more in the future. We're trying to provide and pair the right kinds of services to what the need is in the community. And as our county grows in population, as people move in, as we see more and more businesses plant themselves here, and as we try to grow residentially, you're going to see more need. That's just the nature of things. So to be able to provide that social service infrastructure, I feel like is vitally important. You're looking at all the other types of infrastructure that needs to be, present and strong in the community. Social services is a huge part of that. So we tell people that we want to make sure that they have the best of the best. And that we are able to provide what the community needs, what our individuals need here, and that it feels very local, so that we're not just saying, oh, we do only education programs or we do only mental health programs. We're really looking at across the board from birth to our senior citizens, what are the top needs for people in our community.
And what's the hardest struggle when it comes to trying to reach a goal like that? I can't imagine
Mhm.
starting from zero and knowing that
Every
you have to
year.
every single year you succeed and then you're right
Uh-huh.
back to zero. What keeps you up the most at night? Ashland's going to give. The
Uh-huh.
people are going to give. There's going to be need.
Mm-hmm.
What keeps you up at night trying to figure out how you're going to make this thing work?
Well, okay. So the thing that keeps me up at night is, have I reached out to the right people? Are we messaging correctly so that people understand it? Does it feel authentic to them? Because we want to make sure that they really feel like, yes, I understand this. Yes, it rings true. It's not just a message that's been passed down from another higher entity, because we don't do that. We really are based on what is happening here in our local community. And we also don't want to make it feel overwhelming and scary. Like, if you don't, then these bad things are going to happen.
Hmm.
So there's got to be hope in that message that we're making a difference and that we're making change. We've been talking a lot this last year about a two-generation approach and what that means. And that, because change is hard, it takes a long time. And there can be frustrations sometimes in social services that people want to see that difference happen right away. And it just doesn't work like that. And so we've been talking about, sometimes it takes that second generation to see where you're really making that change. So, if mom and dad, if it is a two-parent household, maybe aren't making the best of decisions, but yet then there's kids in that home that are getting services. The relationship with maybe school is strengthened. They're getting to mental health appointments. That is going to build a firm foundation for them. And as adults, they're going to be able to make better decisions because they were able to receive the services that they need. So change is hard. It's a long game. And so when we're talking to donors, we're talking about, you're investing in a long-term future. This is not just a one-off.
Yeah. And can we see the evidence of that? Have you noticed over your time here at Ashland a change? Are we able to see a change based on the success of the United Way, and then based on those funds going to, how are we doing? Is that a fair
Well, I
question?
think that's a great question because, sometimes we'll see things like we'll see an increase in service units that have been provided. So, last year in 2023, over 19,000 times people were served in Ashland County, and that seems like a lot. But to me, we talked a little bit beforehand as a past social worker. I'm always sort of looking at the complexity of care that our families need. So, um, pairing services together is going to give a strengthened result. If you have a client who is going to Associated Charities for rental assistance, maybe they're attending counseling sessions at Appleseed Community Mental Health. Maybe they're going to the food pantry at the Croc Center. That seems like a lot to an outside person. But to me, that means they're being strengthened by the services that are being provided in town. So maybe they are more able to concentrate on getting back into the workforce, getting kids back to school, going to appointments. And so all of those things are a strengthened family. And those are the results that we want to see.
Yeah, so you're seeing that. I'm interested, Stacy, in listening to you talk. What drives you to do this? This is not an easy job. Where,
It's
what's
not an
inside your
easy job.
heart? I'm interested in what makes you tick a little bit and why this matters so much to you.
Yeah, I think that all people deserve their best chance. Um, and that doesn't always happen. And so I think within the social service field, that's what we always have to look for is like, what is the next right move? And you don't always have the right information. I mean, you have to make your next best move with the information that you have. And that includes with people. Sometimes you make mistakes. And I think that there are a lot of times when you are providing services for people, it's real easy to look with judgment. It really, people make terrible decisions sometimes. That is certainly true. But not always do people have the whole picture to understand what they have walked through in their own lives. And so I think it's really important that we treat people with respect. We treat people with care. We treat people like individuals and don't lump them all together and go, well, that's just how people act. And to give them their next best chance and to let them earn it and use it. We have to hold people accountable, and they do better when they're held accountable rather than just giving a handout. So, what drives me is to make sure that everybody's kind of got that equal footing and that they can live their best lives. And, if they've got kids, that's going to drive me even further.
And why is that?
I just feel like because, kids they are the ones that can sometimes get forgotten, get caught
Yeah.
in the shuffle. It's very precarious for them. It can be not safe. So, I think that I and probably all the service providers are going to want to work as hard as we possibly can to make sure that kiddos are getting what they need so that they're safe and cared for.
So I'm going to go out on a limb here and probably say something that's going to get me in trouble, but I'm just feeling like I want to share this with you. Ashland is not even politically, it's just a conservative
Yeah.
community. We tend to vote conservative. We've got business
Hmm.
started, that kind of thing. And I'm going to start labeling things that I don't mean to, but it is to the way we do things, I guess. I like the United Way because I like the idea of helping people to help themselves.
Yeah.
I think that's a conservative viewpoint.
Hmm.
And you just said that, the hands up instead of a handout. I don't think those
Yeah.
were your words, but I think that's kind of what you meant.
Yep.
Do you find, why is it that Ashland does so well in giving and taking care of each other and yet can be labeled by those who like to use labels as conservative? Those two don't go together, do they?
Oh, they don't. Oh gosh, we could talk about this, I bet, for the next 3 weeks.
That's why I asked. I thought it might be an interesting thing.
It is, and I probably could also say things that would get us in trouble then.
I know, isn't it hard? It's hard to
It
have a
is.
conversation these days. We
It's
don't mean
really,
any problem, but
well, no, and I
yeah,
think it's charged. I mean,
yeah.
these are the conversations that, especially thinking on an election year,
Maybe
can
that's why I'm
really,
thinking about it. Yeah.
yeah. can get charged for people. And I think we lose sight of what is important. I think we can label too often. We can look at it from our own lens, whether that's politically or from a religious perspective. And I think probably because of my background in social services, probably because of the impact of my own family, my own current family structure, I look at it much wider than that. And I think that it is probably really dangerous to label so much. And we're doing it so freely anymore. And that makes me really wildly uncomfortable because we've forgotten that we are all people and that we all have walked really uncomfortable, hard things in life. And to the point where some people are very unwilling to recognize it or talk about it. And if you haven't walked something hard and uncomfortable, then that has been by luck, as far as I'm concerned. And nobody is getting a special pass. It has just been pure luck. And I'm not saying that hard work doesn't position you well, but sometimes luck has positioned people terribly. And so they've had to work against that.
Wow.
And,
Yeah.
we say a lot of times here in this particular United Way that we're all one disaster from falling over the cliff.
Boy, that's the truth.
That something could happen and you have a house fire, you're underinsured, you lose your job, your savings isn't as big as you thought it was going to be. There's a medical issue that strikes one of your kids, that you lose all of your savings. I mean, these are things that can happen to anyone. And so I think we need to be a lot kinder to each other and a lot less judgmental about things.
I love that. I've always kind of felt that wherever your stance is on things, we all want the same things. We want people to be happy. We want people to be successful. We want good, and yet we try to pinpoint each other. And so I'm glad you answered it that way. We're just good people here.
Yes.
And maybe everywhere, trying to do what's best. And you're helping to facilitate that.
Everyone in the organization needs to know how to sell. Sales is the strength of any company. Whether or not you're in marketing, operations, or even finance, everyone has a strong shared accountability towards driving top-line revenue. Whether or not you're client-facing or talking over the phone, you're able to build a stronger level of rapport with the clients. Everyone in the organization shares that responsibility to know how to sell.
You're not an autopilot, are you? Is it ever just too easy?
Oh my gosh, I wish.
I mean, don't you just have to send the envelopes out and it's all done? Like, where's the pressure come?
Gosh, there's so much that goes into it that I know that it seems like we send out our requests and that's it. And there's so much behind the scenes that happen, and it is a complicated organization. And I'm the only full-time employee. We have 2 part-time employees, 25 hours a week, and 1 very part-time employee at like 15 hours a week. So
you're doing it all.
Yeah, we're doing it all the time. There's rarely a break. When the campaign is over, people will say, "Aren't you so relieved?" I'm like, I mean, yes, but we're right back in it. And that's the thing with annual campaigns. I mean, it is just, you talk about to any annual fundraiser is like, you're planning at the same time you're executing. So you're planning for the next year while you're executing the year that you're in, trying to come up with new and exciting ideas because it's boring to people. I mean, let me be really honest about that. They're like, oh, it's campaign time again. What kind of fun are you going to pull out so we're interested in it? So we're always trying to come up with the next thing that makes people think, oh, that was fun. That was exciting. I want to go to that. So yeah, it's never ending.
Have you ever not hit your goal? And if you don't, what are the ramifications?
I have not hit the goal 1 out of 7 of my campaigns. This is my 8th campaign that we're currently in right now. And I mean, do I always want to hit the goal? Absolutely. We try to really plan for it so the partner agencies know um, what they're going to get from us so that they can plan in their own budgets. And if we don't make the goal, I mean, then I guess they're going to get a little bit less and they're going to have to share that across the board. Do we want that to happen? Absolutely not. But I try not to think in terms of it being disastrous. I
Yeah.
mean, and I really don't want people so concentrated on like the campaign number and the 100% because then I feel like they lose sight of what is
Good
really
for you.
important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I'm sure other people will disagree, but that's what keeps me sane.
Yeah. And it must feel good to drive by the sign that says, we hit 100%, and
It
yet,
does, for sure.
and
Yeah,
and yet you're not throwing it into people's faces with a doom or gloom
right,
type of thing. And I really
right.
appreciate that. And maybe that's part of the secret sauce and success, that we're all in this together. We're doing
Yeah,
good. We're all going to do good, and that's
yep.
good. What are the challenges in the future? We talked a little bit about the culture and our times today.
Hmm.
Um, what are the challenges going to be for United Way, and even for communities that are trying to pick each other up,
Yeah,
that you see coming on the horizon that we have to overcome?
I think, us maintaining relevancy in the community as agencies have gotten much better at fundraising on their own. Um, those are
Hmm.
things we don't want to be in competition with our partner agencies. So, how do we support them during the times where we're not actively campaigning and at the same time going out and raising a tremendous amount of money so that we can also be able to provide them funding that they really need. I mean, our goal in our county, some counties are a little bit different in terms of they're doing their own United Way programming. So they're raising dollars for that. We don't do that here. So um, we I feel like I just rabbit trailed, which is not unlike me at all. I get too many ideas in my head and then I start going, but we don't want to be in competition with them. We want to make sure that we're providing for them to take some of the pressure off of them so they're
Hmm.
not having to fundraise. We've got, some partner agencies that are small. And so we really help take that pressure off. And some of them are much larger and, have bigger teams that can do some of that fundraising. And then some that are not fundraising at all because they're able to, bill down some governmental dollars, but there's still gaps. And those dollars also are not flexible at all. They can only be spent certain ways
Yeah, I know
when
that.
they know their clients need other things. And so we can provide those really flexible dollars to really drive at what client need is. And so that's a great way to utilize their partnership dollars from us.
And I think client needs are growing. It's my own personal
Yeah.
viewpoint, that the rich are getting richer, and the inflation, the middle
Yep.
class is really going away, and it's really becoming harder and harder to make ends meet. And so those additional funds that you're able to find, even if they raise them on their own,
Yeah.
there's always going to be need. I don't think
Yep.
anybody can argue that inflation is just crippling things
Yes. I mean, I feel
and
it in
making
my
it very
own
hard.
household. Yeah.
Oh,
I
oh,
mean, I've got 3 teenagers and I was joking, not joking a couple weeks ago. I'm like, no one told me that they would eat this much. And, okay, it's not time to buy groceries, but yet it's
but
time to
yet
buy
it is.
groceries and it's expensive. So,
Yeah.
I never want to compare at all what clients are going through, but definitely I do think the middle class is feeling the pinch
Yeah.
on things.
Yeah, and needs more and more help. I
Yeah.
think that, and that's even hard sometimes for people to raise their hand and say, I need a little help. Who
Yep.
can help me? Because they're not used to that. It's just a different world. And I'm glad you're paying
Hmm.
attention to it. I'm glad Ashland is too.
Yeah.
I've always wondered this, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. You talk with businesses, and there's the leaders and the pace setters and things of that
Hmm.
sort. What should a person who has a job, what should they feel is their fair share when it comes to United Way or giving? How should they kind of do the math?
Well, let me tell you that I think our donors are incredibly special. We have been sharing this part of our story a lot more. So, the majority of the donors that we have give anywhere from a dollar to $249 a year. 1,300 of our donors are in that bracket, and that's
Hmm.
the largest like the most frequent bracket that we have. And those are the people who understand the impact and the power of their dollars. They have watched their own family members, their friends, church members, and neighbors who have struggled, and they feel the power of giving at a $25 gift or $52 if they're giving $2 every week for payroll deduction. And they really believe in that. We were out at Charles River. We did 2 sessions, and in both sessions, different stories, but we had their employees stand up and say, my mom used the service. I didn't realize that it was through United Way, but she has used 5 of these services on here. She's disabled. She really needs the help. We had another young woman share with us that several years ago, she had left a bad domestic violence situation. She's like, I used almost every single service on here, and it got me set up for the future. My 3 kids are safe. I'm working here. I am financially stable now. I have my own apartment. My kids are going to school. And to me, that is like the most powerful testimony ever. And they're the ones that are giving the donations. And I just think that from a fundraising perspective, that's the thing that I love absolutely the most, is that they know and understand the power of the collective dollar. And they feel proud to be giving to an organization that they've used. It was amazing.
How does that make you feel?
Honestly, I almost feel like it makes me feel relieved, which is kind of a weird adjective to use, but it means then that the money is getting to the right place and
doing the right thing.
Yes. And the people,
hands up.
Yep. And they are benefited from it. And then in turn, they are, providing that same level of care to someone else. And so it's like a full circle kind of thing.
That's the way it's meant to be.
And yeah. And it was really amazing to me. Actually, we left both of those sessions crying, which I've turned into a crier and the last couple of years anyhow. But it really was very touching to me that they felt safe enough to share, and that also that what we already knew was really validated to be true.
Tremendous. Stacy, how do people find out about you or learn about you or help you in this cause for donations and things? Can you give some contact information?
They can come to our website, which is www.uwashlandOH.org, or just Google United Way of Ashland County, much easier. You can call 419-281-5551. And you can stop and see us. We get visitors all the time in our office. So if you have a question, you like something, you don't like something, come and tell us. I mean, that we can only get better if people share what they know and tell us what they need. So our office is on South Street downtown by Farm and Home. So stop in and see us.
Tremendous. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for all that you do. I'm a firm believer that things are going to get done. We're going to take care of each other, but you're actually on the front lines doing it. And I really appreciate all that you do and your organization do to make this a great community. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it.
That is Stacy Schiemann. He's the Executive Director of United Way of Ashland County, my guest on Purpose Under Pressure, brought to you by Sandler by the Ruby Group. Sellers are under pressure to perform, and Sandler helps them to succeed on purpose. You'll find all past episodes of Purpose Under Pressure at brianmediastrategies.com/podcast and wherever you stream your favorite shows. We do this every week, and we will see you next time on Purpose.